last episode, we kicked off our 10k budget build with an S13 rolling shell and an LS1. Today we're going to go through freshening the LS1, mocking it up, and our first big fail. So I borrowed a camera, Matt had a camera, we set the cameras up, and we thought we were getting some great content of us putting the VRS kit through the LS1, but it turns out that Matt's camera was full and my camera had 0 battery. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of footage, so I'll have to describe what we did.
As I was editing the video, I realized the talking head just really didn't do it justice, so I figured we can use a 3D model instead. We started by taking the fuel rail off, which you can pull off all at once, or you can unclip the injectors and take the rail off and then pull each injector out. Then you can access the intake bolts and take the intake off, and this exposes the valley cover. In the real world, our valley cover had 2 little plastic caps that go over the top of the knock sensors. As we were pulling these off, we actually broke one of the knock sensor connectors. But we got the valley cover off, cleaned up the surfaces, fitted the new gasket, and used the bolts from the Bolt Kit to put the valley cover back on. Then we needed to replace the valve stem seals, and to get to these you need to take the coil packs off. It was about this time that we realised that we didn't have any way to stop the valves from falling into the cylinder once we'd taken the spring off, and Matt mentioned that normally this is done by pressurising the cylinder. We didn't have the right tool for the job, and we needed a new knock sensor anyway, so we did a parts run. We grabbed a comp tool and some airline fittings, the knock sensor, and a spring puller. When we got back, we pulled the rocker covers off, we took the rollers out, and we made our little compression tool. The spring removal tool we got was a little bit on the cheap side, and it took us a lot longer than I'd like to admit to get the first 2 springs compressed. In order to get the spring off the valve, we had to remove the collets, which I didn't even know existed until that day. The trick was to compress the spring enough to allow a little bit of travel, then hit the spring to dislodge the collet, and then you can pull the collet out. Sometimes these would dislodge nicely and stay in the spring, other times they would yeet themselves to Narnia. Once these are out of the way, it means you can take the spring off and replace the seal and then put them back in. With the first 2 done, we did the remaining 14 in about the same time it took us to do the first 2. This trick was learning to use the spring tool. I should also mention that the stem seals are color-coded. It took some Googling and a phone call to work out that brown are exhaust and the blue or green ones are for the air intake. We replaced the rocker cover gaskets as well, and with the new Bolt Kit we put everything back together.
Now the VRS kit does come with head gaskets and a rear main seal, but I made the executive decision that as we hadn't had any issues with milkshakes in the past, and the rear main was replaced at the last competition the engine did, we were just going to skip those and keep the heads on. If and probably when we need to take the heads off, I'd like to do valve springs and get the heads decked, but that's a future me problem. Everything went back together really smoothly. We made sure that we scraped all the gunk off the surfaces before we put everything back together. The Bolt Kit was a godsend. It meant that we could just replace all the missing or different sized bolts. The kit didn't include the water pump gaskets, so I grabbed those and some other random parts that Matt put together. During that week I ordered other parts to try and get the drivetrain at least mock fitted so that we could take a measurement for the tail shaft. I grabbed a T56 with a bell housing, some VE headers, and an LS1 to S13 engine mount kit from KE Conversions. On the weekend we went back up to HQ and we fitted the injectors and the mounts, and we started to lower the engine in, and then we realized that there was a missing piece to the puzzle. Turns out the product description for the engine mount specifically says that it does not come with the rubber bushes and that you need to order them separately. Even though we didn't have the bushes, we tried to make it work. I found some box tube and welded it to the mounts to sit it in the engine bay in the hope that we could get the measurement, but they were just too tall. So during the next week I ordered the rubber bushings from KE Conversions, and I ordered the wrong ones. But Jared emailed me and set me on the right path. Thanks very much, mate. So with the engine loosely sitting in the car, we had our next fail moment. We mock mounted the headers, and there's not even a chance that we can bend or cut these headers to clear the steering column. So we're going to have to find another alternative. So we were feeling a little bit dejected at this point because we hadn't made the progress that we wanted to with the engine. So we started to put together the front suspension to make it roll a bit easier. We found a modified front subframe where the rack position was slightly different so that you didn't need to use offset rack spaces. So we chucked this in. There was some chunky lower control arms, but there was no caster support bars. At this point, we're dirty, hungry, tired, feeling like the car has won. So we decided to pack up and attack it another day. So a quick update on the budget. With the rolling shell and the VRS kit and the random parts that I had to buy in order to get the measurement that we didn't get, we're at 6,500 out of 10k. What we learnt today was make sure you charge your cameras and clear your SD cards, pressurize cylinders before valve work, Collets are like children and will escape at the first chance that they get, read product descriptions carefully. What's next? Everything from today but better? Actually mount the engine and get the measurement that we need. I'll order the missing suspension parts and maybe we'll take a look at the roll cage. If you're enjoying the chaos, hit like, subscribe and comment on how far over the budget we're going to go. It's okay, be honest, I can take it. Anyway guys, see you next time.